lot of great presenters today. Just a quick note, we did have Roseburg Forest Products, but they were actually unable to join us last minute. So we're gonna change things up a little bit towards the end, and we'll have a little bit more of an open discussion. All right, so today we're going to go through some introductions. We're going to talk about what an internship is. Then we're going to hear some perspectives from our assistant directors who are in the colleges here at OSU, and then we'll talk about building a successful internship from various perspectives with you all, plus an excellent student of ours here at OSU, and we'll finish up with some Q&A. If you could please just save your questions until the Q&A or until we get to the employer portion, and this will be a recorded session. All right, so who are we? We're the external relations team here at the Career Development Center at Oregon State University. My name is Miranda Schmitz. I'm the internship and employment developer, and I'll pass it over to Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome from beautiful, rainy Oregon. I don't know where you're coming from, but it's a blustery, dark, wet day here in Oregon, but we still love it. My name's Elizabeth Simmons. I'm the Director for External Relations here at the Career Development Center at Oregon State University, and we're really excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining us. I'll pass it to Wendy.
Hi, everyone. It's great to have you all on here. It's fun to see everybody checking in the chat and recognizing some of y'all. My name's Wendy Kissel-Allison. I'm the Employer Relations Manager here. And I got to do a little bit of everything. So everything from handshake questions and troubleshooting to operational procedures and a job shadow program. So thanks all for joining. And then I can introduce Valerie Ferguson as well. She was also unable to join us today. She is our events manager and runs and produces everything career fairs. She is amazing.
All right, and we've got a couple of guest speakers. Fred, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, hi folks. Glad to be here today. My name is Fred Polander. I work in the College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences at Oregon State University. And in my role, I coordinate the internships that our students do in our majors, which are climate science, environmental sciences, geography and geospatial sciences, and geology and oceanography. So those are areas where we're trying to get our students some hands-on experience working with agencies and a variety of organizations to make sure as they get closer to graduation, they don't just have the content knowledge of our disciplines, but they have engaged with employers in some capacity that relates to their field of study. And I'll pass it over to Nate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nate Scott, and I am Fred's counterpart in the College of Forestry. While I'm not, sorry, I didn't know what that noise was, apologize. While I'm not an internship coordinator, we do have a work experience requirement in the College of Forestry, and I do oversee that work experience requirement, making sure that students have at least 6 months of experience before they graduate. Our degrees are forestry, forest engineering, WINS, which is wood science and innovation, trail, tourism, recreation, adventure, leadership, and natural resources, which is incredibly broad and has a lot of different emphasis and concentrations in them. But I'll try to make sure that students, regardless of their major, have an opportunity to have some sort of internship or part-time work that prepares them well for when they get out of here.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate and Fred. And we'll pass it over to Kennedy.
All right. Hi, my name is Kennedy Gerke. I am currently a student at Oregon State. I'm studying speech communication and with a minor in leadership. This summer, I did a big internship with Carnival Entertainment that I'll be talking more about later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kennedy. And just a heads up, this is a very broad overview of internships. We've got a lot of various speakers from a lot of different areas of study and different industries. So a lot of this is very applicable across industry. All right, it's poll time. Wendy.
Hey, I am looking for the button. Here we go. So we have one question for you, just to give us an idea about where you all are kind of at. There are no right or wrong answers here. Okay. Look at those numbers changing. I like that we have a great mix here. So we've got some good perspectives and experiences. I see some folks that have never started, some that are thinking about it, and couple that are unsure, and that is great. I am going to end that poll. That gives us a good idea of where we are all at. And I will share those results so you could take a quick look. Great, good mix. Okay, so let's talk about internships. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are internships? They are something that many of us may or may not have done in our past. And things that we tell our students that they really should do, right? So according to NACE, and for those of you that aren't familiar with that, that stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And it is a professional organization that is all things career development related for both colleges, universities, career centers, as well as employers. So think a lot of talent acquisition and like human resources, that piece. According to NACE, who provides our guidance, what they consider an internship experience to be is something that is educational. It is an extension of the classroom. Additional training and learning that a student would get that mirrors what they're learning in the classroom setting. So this should also include some form of mentorship. So a student should never be the one and only person doing a job or position in an office setting or, in a business setting. There should be somebody there to help guide them. You could read all of these bullet points here, but those are kind of my two big pieces, right? The extension of the classroom and supervision by a professional. They should also get some routine feedback on how they are doing and not waiting until the end. Okay, next. So why should you host an intern? That's a great question. So not only is it a great way for your organization, company, business, etc., to provide experiences for students, but it's a great way to get your name out there for brand recognition. We know that, students only know as much as they know. So if they've never heard of you, this is a really great way to get student interest. It's also a great way to complete tasks or assignments or projects that have been on your to-do list for a really long time that you just can't get to. Or maybe you just want some fresh perspectives on things. Students have so much experience and knowledge, and various, ways of seeing things. It's really great to have and invite students in. It's also somewhat cost effective for you, and it's a short-term option. And also, as I said, along with brand recognition comes kind of a pipeline for future employees. And that's it for me.
All right, now I'll turn over to Fred and Nate to share a little bit about their thoughts on internships and maybe share some experiences that their students have had in internship positions.
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. Thanks, everyone. So, in the College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, the students in our majors, they're actually required to do an internship. So it's not an optional, nice to have, but rather our program directors, our faculty made a decision that because the career readiness path for our programs is so high, the barrier to entry, if you will, can be quite high because we're talking about federal agencies, state agencies, and there's a lot of opportunities that aren't state federal agencies. But either way, we want to make sure that our students know that these jobs are actually what they want. So environmental sciences, a lot of students that are attracted to that major are wanting to engage in conservation. They care about the environment. They care about the what they hear in the news, right? So there's a lot of kind of purpose and motivation for them to study these disciplines. Uh, but the practical hands-on experience needs to occur so that they can actually gain that kind of self-knowledge of, okay, is this just about purpose and about doing the right thing versus is this actually work I want to actually be engaged with? Are these the things I want to be doing for hours and hours on end? And so the internship requirement, I think, is an asset for our students because it's going to force them out of their comfort zone. And what I would encourage all of the students that I talk to do is to know that the internship is supposed to be one of those kind of first steps into an uncomfortable learning opportunity. When we say experiential learning, you really only learn from experience, and the classroom experience is not the real job experience. So when students are in their degree program, there's a point where they meet with their advisor almost every term, and their advisors will be talking to them about their internship requirement. Um, they don't have to do internship. They could also do research, which is another type of experiential learning. And what they do, the advisors would be guiding the students through finding what term the internship or research experience could happen, how many credits they'll earn, where the dates fit in terms of will it be starting at the beginning of a term, in the middle of a term, will it straddle multiple terms? Because they also need to have the important conversation around credits. So students, they earn credit through doing internship. And the way we have it is 30 hours of work experience in an internship or research experience will equate to 1 credit. So it's very important for the student to consider where those dates fall in, and also the hours per week. So what we would consider is if a student does about 3 hours of internship per week over our 10-week term, that would fulfill 30 hours of work, which is 1 credit. So in that process, though, it's not just about the credits and the timeline. It's also about how the major and their career interests they have will be enhanced by doing this internship. So when they're engaging with potential internship supervisors, we have them bring a form to those discussions to help organize the goal setting. So we want to make sure that students have specific learning objectives. So those of you who are not yet having an internship developed, what I would encourage all of you to consider is this really should be for the student's benefit in a learning capacity. So we have students who could potentially get to know an employer, a person that would be their internship supervisor, and it looks good on in terms of the title of the individual and the name of the organization. But if the quality of work experience is going to be glorified, kind of cleanup work, if you will, if the Corvallis Environmental Center is going to hire a student as an intern to rake leads, that's not actually going to be quality work experience. So this form, it's actually an application form whereby the student and the internship supervisor will decide what are the at least 3 learning objectives. What are the tasks that will be not just valuable to the employer, but also valuable for the student, and how that relates to their academic and career interests. So we require this deliberate, intentional process so that students will have reasonable expectations and the employer will have reasonable expectations. Because at the end of the day, our students, they need to gain that self-knowledge through doing meaningful work related to that career path. And so this form also allows for kind of codifying the commitment in terms of hours per week, the dates, but also what level of supervision and mentorship will be expected. And as this is compiled on one document, it allows the academic advisor and myself as the internship coordinator to review and make sure that this arrangement is going to satisfy an academic endeavor for the student, and also be a worthwhile opportunity for the employer. So we're trying to look out for everyone's best interests. And again, with our requirement being part of their degree requirement, the student does actually need to pay money for the credit. So we also really want to make sure that this is financially an opportunity for the student. And our students can also do internships for non-credit. So let's say a student doesn't need to do the internship. We can actually give them a non-credit option, which will show on their transcript, but they won't have to pay any money. And I could go on, but I want to make sure I'm giving my colleague Nate an opportunity as well to outline any details he would like to for College of Forestry.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. I definitely would say that although we don't have a required internship, most of our majors in the College of Forestry do have a required work experience, and a lot of times that is fulfilled in an internship or at least in some part-time work during school. I think the main reason we have this is definitely to make students more competitive once they leave. So it just, if you have any sort of work experience, particularly when it pertains to the degree you graduated in, it just makes you stand out between other candidates for positions. For just having a degree, you've also been able to apply that experience and apply that knowledge you've gained from university. But as Fred also was talking about, we also do it so students have an understanding of what it means to, like, to be a professional, to understand workplace culture, and to get really hands-on experience to show that they've applied things they've learned in the classroom and get some of those softer skills that they may not understand in a lecture-based course or a classroom. So what does it mean to make sure you show up on time, to have deadlines, to have priorities? What is workplace culture with the teams that you work with? Having a boss now, and students kind of get used to the university environment where you don't necessarily have class all day, every single day. If you show up a couple minutes late, it's no big deal. But when they get into work experience, knowing what it means to be able to be a professional, how to write correct emails, and I think it really develops them into a more work-ready person when they graduate, whenever that would be. And so we definitely wanted to make sure that the work experience students are getting, as Fred was talking about, is beneficial for students as well, that they're actually gaining something and gaining more than what we could give them here simply at a university or in a classroom. And we think that also prepares them to be better prepared for the workforce and better professionals when they leave as well. So you're getting a more qualified candidate. You're getting somebody that actually knows how to do the work that you're asking them to do and how to be ready to do that more than just, I took a bunch of classes at university. Some of the employers that I've talked to at our career fairs that are the really big timber industry employers for forestry. So Roseburg, Starker, Sierra Pacific, Weyerhaeuser, those kind of things, they have well-developed internship programs that they've had for quite a while now. And they say that a lot of their best candidates come from that because not only are they getting great schooling from Oregon State University, but they're able to develop them. Or if they, work for Roseburg and then they actually end up going to Starker once they graduate, they know that Roseburg has been able to develop them into a highly qualified person with their expertise from school and with their professionalism from that internship. So I think in direct and indirect ways, internships provide students and both employers with better working people when it's time to get there. And that's why we heavily push that. And the final thing that I want to mention is definitely what Fred talked about as well, that paid internships are the best. I think that you will get the most students, the most motivated students when there is pay involved. And sometimes it's just not financially viable for students to be able to have internships if they're not paid. But also, I think if you want the best people are going to go to the best opportunities. And a lot of times that comes with pay as well. So I don't want to say it's not worthwhile for students if it's unpaid, but I think that both you and the student is not getting the best experience if the internships that are available to them aren't paid. So I want to give my 2 cents there as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Nate and Fred. Really appreciate your perspectives. And just to kind of touch base on what they both said. So at OSU, each department within each college has their own parameters of what qualifies for an internship. So depending on the type of student that you're working with, you may have to work directly with them and their internship coordinator to discuss what will actually qualify for an internship for their degree and for that credit. So just a side note on that. All right, we are going to head now to chat with our student, Kennedy.
Can I jump in real quick?
Oh yeah,
before
please
we do
do.
that? I just wanted to clarify, there's some questions in the chat. There's a little bit of like, if it's paid, can they get academic credit? And I just wanted to clarify, in addition to the fact that if a student's getting academic credit, you're going to have to work with different processes at different colleges. And of course, our team is happy to help get you in the right place and connected to the right folks. You can get academic credit for a paid internship. So you can have both. I think there's always been a little bit of confusion, like, oh, if you get academic credit, you can't get paid. But that's not true at all. So it can be both. And some students will not need internship credit. And so they can still do an internship with you. They just don't have to go through the process of getting academic credit. So I wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Actually, could I add to that, Elizabeth? One
Yes.
thing that I have heard an employer say is, well, we can't pay the student, but we're happy to let them get credit for it. And I think if you want to think about it from the student perspective, a paid internship is always great, right? But even if it's a volunteer experience, ideally they wouldn't have to pay for credit to the university. So it's not necessarily always a benefit to the student to have an internship opportunity where the employer sees it as a benefit that, oh, they're getting college credit for this, so we don't really need to pay them. It is true that credits need to be paid for, and that comes out of the student's pocket. So unless the employer were going to try to figure out what those costs were to justify some kind of stipend or payment, we'd be happy to talk about that. But at the end of the day, when students have to pay for internships credits, that's not always considered a benefit from their perspective.
Thanks, Fred and Elizabeth. Those are both really fantastic points. All right, moving on to Kennedy.
All right. So as I said a little bit earlier, I am studying speech communication with a minor in leadership. My goal, honestly, I graduate this year. I graduate in winter. I go back on to work on one of these ships. My goal is to work in public speaking. So this internship was the perfect opportunity for that. So my internship was, it was the carnival internship. So I worked with the Carnival Entertainment Internship. It is available for any junior or senior in any accredited university as long as your GPA is 3.0 or higher, and you have to be 21 years old. So I was gone from May 18th to August 5th, and I was working on a cruise ship, and I started in New Orleans, and I went to Cozumel, Progreso, and Costa Maya, Mexico. So while in this internship, ideally I wanted to get a more public speaking role. However, I got selected for the youth staff position. So I was working in Camp Ocean. So on average, I worked with anywhere from 1 to 65 children each day. And they ranged from ages from 2 to 11. And occasionally I would even work in the teen camps, which has, teenagers from 12 to 17 years old. And as Fred and Nate mentioned with paid internships, I was getting a paid internship because we worked every single day for that 3 months. We were working 8 to 10 hours a day. So thankfully it was paid. But even in youth staff, I hosted lots of different activities and events. Some of those included the Welcome Aboard party, which is where we had to dance and we got to dance with Cat in the Hat, as you can see. I hosted Astro Bingo, which is an event that we hosted for the families where we played bingo and we obviously dressed it as astronauts and gave a bunch of different space facts. We did Turtle Trek, which was like a baby race, and I helped host those events. We did Build-A-Bear Workshop. We had to set up and take down these massive machines, and we had to host giant events for all the kids and families. We hosted a 4th of July family fun party, which was a crazy time. We had tons of families in there, and we had to host a giant dancing party for everyone. I also had to do some not so exciting shipboard duties, which included fun guide, kind of leading people around the ships, embark and debark, which is getting people on and off the ship, which is arguably the worst part because it's 6 a.m. in the morning and no one wants to be awake that early. And honestly, one of my favorites was the life jacket safety briefing. I always made it a grand time. So that's kind of what I did on the ship 7 days a week. Ship life was kind of crazy. So like I said, I was on board for 3 months for my internship. A typical non-internship contract is about 6 months. There was about 1,500 crew on board and about 3,000 guests. So there's never really much time alone. The living situation is even smaller than a dorm room. You have a bunk bed and a desk. That is about it. And you share a bathroom. And you kind of just get placed with a random person and you make do what you can. And I think something interesting about that is that it's often someone from like a different country. So you already like right away you're faced with like differences and you learn to meet new people. We eat in the crew mess. We can only eat at certain times. They serve breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight snack. We have access to crew and guest gyms, so we still got to work out and do things there. And we got to attend crew parties and events and excursions, which was a great way to kind of get to meet people. We had playlist production shows pictured there. We did crew bingo where you could win up to like $5,000. We had our prom party. And then one of my favorite experiences was getting to go on an excursion to Chichen Itza and the Iquil cenote. So the Chichen Itza are like the Mayan ruins, and then the cenote was just like a giant water bowl at the bottom. And that was super exciting. Those were really fun things to get to do. So what was helpful, this is like more specific for this internship, was I got to reach out to family and friends on and off board, which I think is important in any internship to like reach out to people when it is feeling stressful, whether that be family, friends, or even someone that you work with. I think it's important to communicate those things that are getting stressful. I had a group of 30 other interns as well, and we got to all meet in Miami for our training. So these pictures are me with some of the interns that I met. And we to this day we all still like have our group chat and chatting about like new internships and stuff all the time. And then I also was constantly in chat with the internship director, but the most helpful thing for me was writing about the experience, which is how I got my academic credit for this. So I got a total of 16 credits for this internship, 10 for my minor and 6 for my major. For my minor, I had to write just like updates throughout the week and like what sort of leadership styles I was applying in each position. For speech communication, I had to write about different rhetorical styles and different interpersonal and intrapersonal forms of communication that I was using in the daily to kind of get through things, because when you're on those ships, your whole life kind of changes because you are surrounded with only those people for 3.5 months. So, but yeah, that's where I was able to get my academic credit. I believe, if I remember correctly, on my planning sheet, a lot of my goals were just around feeling comfortable, like expressing those things, which was really hard at first. But it all worked, and I got my 16 credits, which was great. And now I'm actually able to graduate on time this year, so that was good. So again, this is a bit specific to this internship specifically, but what to do, definitely just take the time to like make friends and learn about all the new cultures that you get to see and learn from on the ships, and take time to for yourself to get off the ship when we're at dock, and just understand that like any sort of internship, but ones like this where you're away for a while, they take like a good amount of time to adjust. Like it's not going to come easy right away. And I think this internship also kind of prepared me to be unsettled in other situations as well. What not to do for this internship, don't overpack. You're there for 3 months. You think like, oh, I need to bring a bunch of clothes. No, because you're in your uniform for 70 hours. So 70 hours a week, basically. So I would bring some cute outfits for when I was off on ship, but that was about it. For a lot of companies, it is important to not post company sensitive information on public social media. That's one thing they kind of stress a lot, to be like, make sure that what you are posting is good for the company. So that's one thing that I think is very good to stress for any sort of internship. What's on the internet is permanent. So just be smart about that. Um, that's about it for that one. So overall, I would highly recommend this internship, and like any other sort of internship that you can get. This internship truly has changed my life. Like beforehand, I've always been a social person, but this has really brought me out of my shell, and I'm very comfortable like standing my ground a bit more now because I've done this, which was really hard for me. And I think a lot of internships push you out of your comfort zone and bring you into something that teaches you to grow. This internship, I'm also able to go back. I am going back in February. I board another ship, and I'll be out for another 3.5 months. And then I come back for my graduation ceremony. So I couldn't talk enough about this internship, honestly, and how much it has affected me. And being able to get the academic credit was honestly just a plus, because either way, I would have done this internship. But it really just helped me boost in my educational and career future. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kennedy. Can you speak a little bit about things that the structure that Carnival has for their internship program helped you? Was there anything that stood out to you? You mentioned one-on-ones with your mentor.
Yeah, so they're very, very accommodating. So the first thing that was very helpful is they get their interns, they start the application process in September, and then you don't actually go out until May. So you have from September to May to get all of your back work done. So they give you a lot of time, because you have to get a medical check, you have to get background checks, fingerprints done, like a whole government background check. So they give you a lot of time. And for me personally, I ran into issues with like my dental and medical aspect of it, and I ended up having to pay like a huge amount out of pocket. And I was talking to my director, and they were trying to like make things work for me a little bit better, and just like the accommodation and flexibility there was super helpful. And then once on the ship, they were again super accommodating, which has just been the best part about it. So we had a onboard mentor for the job itself. We also had a onboard mentor that was just more of our social mentor. So they would take you just like to the crew mess to get lunch, or they would take you to get ice cream or something, and just kind of show you, like, try to get you to meet more people, basically. We also had, like I said, we had check-ins with our internship director quite often to kind of check how we were doing. We also got mid evals and end of the contract evals, which kind of helped us as well. But we also had the 3-day training in Miami, which was helpful to kind of just show like what the core values of Carnival were and learn a little bit more about that. I think one of the most helpful things that Carnival did was constantly like checking in, making sure that if any accommodations could be made, they were, and they really got to know their interns, which I think is super important. Even now, like my internship director and I, like we text back and forth. We're like, "Hey girl, like I'm doing this, I'm speaking about the internship. Like, how do you feel about that?" And she's, "Oh, I'm so excited for you. I'm doing like other pairs with her and stuff in the future." I think the personal connection that they made with their internships was the most helpful thing, because it really just made all the interns feel like we're not in this alone, and all of our feelings of stress and worry were validated, which I thought was really helpful. They also, they offer it for academic credit, which is just helpful in general. And they were asking if I needed any other forms or anything filled out. So just being there was the biggest help that they could have done for any of us.
That's awesome. Do you have any recommendations for employers for communicating with students, especially as you mentioned, you started the process in September and you started the internship actually in May. What mediums did they use to communicate with you, and what did you find to be most helpful or most effective?
Yeah, so initially we used a lot of Zoom as well. We had a lot of just like internship calls. And then once we got onto the ship, it was a little bit more difficult because we didn't always have Wi-Fi. So we used a lot of WhatsApp, uh, which was good. I think in general, we didn't use a lot of apps like Handshake or anything. It was mostly just WhatsApp and like phone calls and stuff. They also would contact the like HR of our ship if they needed to. That way we could have like an in-person conversation with HR about an issue that maybe came from like the director of the internship itself. I think for me personally, using like apps like Handshake or like LinkedIn to communicate, they don't resonate with me quite as well, because I feel like WhatsApp or texting is just a bit more personal, which allows a more personal relationship to grow, which I feel is important. I feel like on LinkedIn, because it kind of started on LinkedIn with some of the interns when we connected, it just feels almost too professional in a way where it's like, how am I supposed to engage here? So
Great. Thank you so much for all of that information and a thorough explanation of your experience, and good luck on round 2. Maybe we'll have you
thank
back
you.
to share about the second round.
Yes, I'll be in Belize and Jamaica this time. So
All
I can't
right. So if anybody
complain.
needs to go to Belize and Jamaica, look up Kennedy.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So we are now going to move on to the employer perspective. Unfortunately, the employer that we had a last minute cancellation today. So we're going to kind of open it up a little bit to folks on the poll who mentioned that they do have internships currently. And if you would like to just, hop on or post in the chat and share any best practices or anything to add, we'd love to hear what's worked well and or has not worked well for you.
You mean you're giving me an opportunity to talk to an audience? Hi, it's Ron
Ron.
with West Coast Contractors in Coos Bay, Oregon. So we've used interns from Oregon State a few times. We've had interns who have gone on to become some of our very best employees. Of course, we're a construction company. We take interns from the Construction Engineering Management program. Um, One of them we had actually as a high school student, I think between high school and college, and then he came back during summers and Christmas break. He unfortunately went on to somewhere else because I think there's a girl involved somewhere, and he went off to Portland. Anyway, I just can't talk enough about what a good experience we've had with the interns that have come from OSU. And in fact, I've been tasked with going out and finding another one for next summer. So I'm looking for someone from construction engineering management who would like to work in Coos Bay, beautiful Coos Bay, Oregon, for the summer and possibly a career after that.
Thanks, Ron. What do you think might be helpful to the other employers on this call as far as like the first internship intern you had? How did you find them?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's been quite a while ago, and he's gone on to become our the head of our project manager. So
Okay.
Chad is 35 years old now, and he has guys working for him that are literally twice his age.
Right.
And he keeps track of all of our projects. That was before I was involved in a process. I got involved in workforce because my son was in high school about 10 years ago. As far as how to get young people in, what to expect, um, there are internship fairs there at Oregon State. I tried to get into the one for engineering and construction, but apparently the slots there for employers fill up in minutes. In minutes, they fill up, and I wasn't able to get in there. I'll be doing it on site, I guess, booth in the spring, hoping to find someone who's interested in construction engineering management. So mostly when I talk to people, say we're looking for some young, bright, talented young people, they think a guy that can come out and build things with a hammer or pour concrete or drive equipment, which we need those. We do need those. But right now we're needing somebody that can help manage the projects from a desk. That has skills in all the project management tools and scheduling and some accounting and some smarts, and as well as mechanical abilities. Did that answer your question, Elizabeth?
Oh, yes. Yes. And thanks for sharing, Ron.
Sure.
I don't know if anyone else had any like specific tips or things that have worked for their internship program, or things that they've done that haven't been successful. We would love to hear any more advice before we wrap up and just open it up for general questions.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. Or it looks like somebody raised their hand before I started talking.
Go for it, and we'll get the next one in.
Okay. So my name's Brisbane. I'm actually an OSU alumni, 2029 or 2019. So I honestly just wanted to get in this chat. A lot of the work that I do is more on the East Coast because my company, CNS Wholesale Grocers, we're based out of New Hampshire. But we do have some things brewing on the West Coast, and I always want to rep my alma mater. So if I can, I want to get involved with you guys more. But our intern program really went by the wayside due to COVID. We weren't bringing people on, and there were a couple, opportunities that were more handpicked, but it wasn't as, widespread as it is now. So I handle all of our university recruitment. We have this year think somewhere between 20 and 30 interns that'll be joining us at various locations, mostly headquarters, but also in the field as well. Trying to get some supply chain interns from you guys and maybe a sales one as well. But one of the things that I think is very helpful is obviously Handshake. For those of you that don't know what Handshake is, it's a platform that most universities use, but especially the larger ones. And it helps, especially companies like mine that aren't, you know, super household names or anything like that. It helps students be able to see that and know that, you know, I'm actively targeting students from these universities. And I know that, you know, they're going to be good, solid candidates. So Handshake is great. You don't have to pay for it. There are paid subscriptions. Just getting on there, getting a, you know, kind of user platform or whatever, it's great. But aside from that, I think the biggest thing that's been helpful for my program and kind of what we're doing this year as we continue to kind of revamp it is figuring out what interns want from the experience. You know, we are not only looking for interns to do work for us, but we want to make sure that we're providing them the best opportunity. So looking for interns specifically within the degree programs that they'll be working in the departments, you know, want to make sure that it's aligned very well. You know, so I think looking at that and also the soft skills. I've heard from a lot of managers and I've heard from a lot of students that they want to know more about what it's like to really be in a professional setting. It's all theoretical in school, which, you know, theoretical knowledge is great, but being able to have that, you know, in person, hands-on, you know, I actually have to send people professional emails is, you know, great. So, yeah, that's just my take.
Thank you so much, Brisbane.
Can I add something?
Sure, Kennedy.
I think for Ron as well, I know he kind of talks about looking for another intern. I think one thing that I found helpful is being able to just kind of find internships by like a general Google search, to be honest. Like I know there's like Handshake and LinkedIn and, you know, all those types of websites where that they do get posted, and on like university specific websites they get posted. However, personal experience and speaking to other interns as well, I know like when I found my internship, it's because I literally just searched cruise internship on Google and it came up. And so I feel like if you're able to have it come up on Google maybe a little bit more broadly, it also might attract more people. That's it.
Kennedy. We might have time. I think someone else had their hand up. We might have time for like one more person to share. And then I think Miranda, there's a little bit more information and maybe a little time for questions at the end and we can hang out.
I just have a little bit of info. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jency. I work with the Community Alliance of Tenants. And so we're a nonprofit. And we just had 3 interns that we got through POIC, which is Portland. Oh no, I'm not going to get it right. But it's it's a great program that places interns with nonprofits and I think also for-profit companies. And they pay the internship, but you basically they come to you and you set it all up. One thing that we learned in this process was that we really needed to be very clear on what the exit interview process was. Because basically the interns kind of got to the end of their hours and got to the end of their end date, went off into school and disappeared. They just kind of disappeared at the end of it. So I think being very clear at the beginning what the end is going to look like is really important. And also we had a bilingual program intern for multiple programs. So there were multiple supervisors. And so we didn't have any, you know, extra programs. We just used Google Sheets. And we had the in Google Sheets, which everybody could get into. We had the intern putting their hours in, what they were actually doing and what they were planning to do, and then what the needs were from the different departments, and then having their like core one-on-one person meet with them every week. And that was me. And it was a little chaotic with all the different departments, but because we were meeting every week to make their schedule and make sure that everybody's tasks got done, it actually was it ended up being a really good way to keep track of their hours, because their hours were really important to report back and approve since they were getting paid elsewhere. So that's just some tips and some from our experience.
Mhm. Thank you so much for sharing. I think I've seen a couple of tips that I'm going to share in the chat too. One, Lynn Casey said we need to advertise our summer opportunities earlier in the year, around February or March. And I would say that is 100% true. Yeah, I think a lot of times we'll get employers reaching out to us in like April, and we're like, oh, a lot of students have already gotten their internship by then. So kind of that's definitely the earlier you can. And in some industries, it's probably going to be earlier than that. So you probably need to ask around in your industry kind of relations groups what they do. Cole, hi Cole. Speaking of Multnomah County, general advice, I would love to double down and have worked for Multnomah County, having an onboarding game plan. So we heard about having an exit plan, and now here's having an onboarding plan, training plan in place before they arrive, and take time to write out what the first couple of days look like. Alex from Grow Your Business Here, she said they found success in exit interviews and direct feedback and how they can make things better. And I think Kyle had his hand up. Maybe one time for Kyle to say something, and then I guess we're going to have to hand it to Miranda to wrap it up. Kyle? Well, raise his hand a couple times. No? Okay, you can jump in if you need to.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth, for running that part. Kyle, if you happen to pop back on and hit our Q&A portion, we can do a quick, might just be a 1 or 2 minute situation there, but we'll just quickly move on. So Handshake came up a lot today. You heard some various, I think, very interesting like student perspectives from Kennedy saying that sometimes the communication from Handshake and employers from Handshake can be not ideal and a little overwhelming. However, I would take that information and also say, please still post there. So if you, we encourage everyone to post their jobs, part-time, full-time, internships on Handshake. So it's a singular spot for all OSU students. And I think as Brisbane mentioned, for students across the country, including our vast e-campus, to see some of these opportunities. All right, so we've got about 2 minutes for any further questions.
And we'll have our contact information too, so you can always reach out to our team afterwards. Ah. No questions? I see Nathan put another great, from Pacific Seafood, put another great tip in there about planning internships around projects that benefit the company and the internship and the intern.
I'd like to give a quick plug that Oregon State University is changing its curriculum so that starting in summer 2025, all students will be encouraged to do some kind of experiential learning as part of our Beyond OSU 2 requirement, where they engage in some type of experiential learning. So I just wanted to give you all that heads up so that you know that Oregon State University students may be on the lookout for opportunities even more in the years to come as we make career readiness part of our core education.
Thanks, Fred. All right, any last chance?
Actually had a question. I'm Haley Riddle. I'm HR partner with Oregon State Credit Union. And we are looking at relaunching our internship program. It's been about 5, maybe 10 years now since we've had a formal program. We did kind of ad hoc launch one last spring. So we did host 3 interns. But we're looking to build some kind of more formalized program. And I would love some maybe insight from the assistant directors working with the students of what they've heard of how other employers have actually structured the internship programs, whether that's like, is it solely project based? Is it more of a rotation within the employer? And just kind of get a sense for how you guys have seen other employers or other employers as well chiming in, kind of how they have it structured, that they've seen students have really enjoyed and have given positive feedback on.
Yeah, what I would say is the student really sort of needs to, I guess, say, quotes, author the internship as much as possible, rather than it being, hey, how do we plug a student into these tasks that we need done? It's more, how do we create an opportunity where the student gets to establish sort of their goals? And sort of if that meets the employer's kind of interest in the whole process, I would say it's a great recruiting possibility. If the student shows that they have the ambition to come up with their learning objectives that are something that works for your organization, you may have a great candidate for an employee for future. So just thinking about it from the student perspective as much as possible is what I would suggest. And I know employers that I've engaged with, they really have appreciated really letting the student sort of develop those at least 3 learning outcomes, and that driving sort of whatever onboarding and activities would follow.
I think that's great. Another thing that I would add as well is taking time to really have good descriptions and requirements in like an internship position, almost having it like a job posting. So the student actually knows what they're going to be doing ahead of time before they even apply. I think this helps them narrow down where exactly they want to go, and also saves time on your part, because you might have students that apply and then you get to the interview process and realize they're not qualified, this is not what they want to do, and this is not a great work for you and for them. So I would definitely say just taking a lot of time to really think about what you want them to do and what would be required of them if they're going to participate in that internship, and being transparent about that ahead of time.
Thanks, Fred and Nate. And Haley, if you want to touch base about getting started on some of those things, I'm happy to meet with you. I'll provide my contact information here in the next couple of slides.
Okay, all right, awesome. Thank you, guys.
Of course. All right, so who you can contact for more information. Our general mailbox is employer.relations@oregonstate.edu, or you can reach out to me directly at miranda.schmitz@oregonstate.edu to get more just information on how to get things going, or if you have specific questions about departments and parameters, I can help kind of connect those dots for you. As always, we'll send you some resources and a recording of this coffee chat in a follow-up email. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate all the various perspectives and the time that you spent with us. Thanks so much.